Hey everyone, sorry about the delay. Once again, hey everyone, sorry for the delay. Once again, Connor's not a professional streamer and screwed up the audio. So hopefully that is now fixed. I think that music's too loud, so I'm gonna... Give me 1 second while I fix that. Also, as on brand as this music is, I feel like I want something different, but I don't know, let me know in the chat, all two of you, what you think of that. Should I continue with the metal, or, I don't know, lo-fi? Lo-fi might be nice for chit-chat. Whatever we're doing. You folks let me know what you want to do. I'll change it if you want. But for now, I'll just keep it that way. Let me get back to the studio. I'm not great at Streamlabs, as you're about to find out. It took me all day yesterday to set up. Isn't it pretty? So, we're here for the first time in a long time to chit-chat about our new project. Last time we were on here was probably close to a year ago now, and it was to be promoting our Decadynamic Dungeons, which Lemonfist, no, Connor is still not a professional streamer. I'm a professional bunch of other things. Sadly, streamer is not one of them, but I'm doing my best. Maybe someday I'll be a professional streamer as a result of all the stuff I do here. But so far, I'm amateur at best. Not doing a great job, but I'm trying, and I think that's worth something. So anyway, thanks, Lemonfist. Now I'm off track. So. We did the Decadynamic Dungeons, as some of you may be aware. We launched the Kickstarter, I should say. It didn't go through. It happens. It probably just wasn't the right time for it. We've had a lot of questions, both on that Kickstarter and just separately. We've gotten some emails about like what happened with that, why are we relaunching it, and really just the costs aren't there. Like, we've spoken to a few different printers, and ultimately, like, it's just not something we can do right now. So Rawlock's Guide to Violence is going to be our next project. We're not going to return to the Decadynamic Dungeons for a little while. We plan to go back to it, just not yet. Rawlock's Guide to Violence was something we were cooking up before Decadynamic Dungeons. We thought Decadynamic Dungeons would be a cool, smaller Kickstarter that then kind of grew bigger than we originally intended, and then ultimately didn't go through. Rawlock's Guide to Violence is obviously meant to be well, maybe not obviously. It's obviously meant to be a kind of sister-brother product to the Gemhammer Grimoire, which we came out with last year. So in a lot of ways, that was a book all about magic and wizardry and sorcery and big book of spells. This is going to be a book about, you know, your martial classes, combat options, things like that. Obviously, the big chunk of the content in the Grimoire was spells, so obviously, like, there aren't spells for martial classes, so we'd have to do something similar. Well, I mean, why can't there be spells for martial classes? I'm going to write that down. Spells for martial classes. It's probably a terrible idea. How would that even work? I don't know. I'm going to figure it out, though. Spells, martial. It's written down. I'm sure Joe will have something negative to say about that later. But so we just I kind of wanted to just jump on here. We're going to do a bunch of these leading up to the Kickstarter, probably once a week, ideally, depending on what our schedules look like. We're pretty busy. Paladins are martial classes. They get various smites. That's true. So we could do some spells for Paladins. Paladins Paladins and Bards, I always feel like, are kind of in a weird place, because they're half in martial, half in spellcasting. And so we kind of did the utility Paladins, specific rogue spells for arcade. Alright, fine. We'll do spells for those. Can we do Arcane Tricksters? Is Arcane Trickster in the SRD? I don't know if we can do that. I feel like this is like a weird line here where we can subtly imply that it's for those, but we can't specifically say that it's for that subclass. Yeah, it's not SRD. I don't think it is either. So, obviously, we'd have to play around with it and figure out wordplay. But we can, like, make rogue spells. Yeah, we could make rogue spells. I'm not sure exactly how that works yet, but I'm writing it down. Rogue spells. Bam. community interaction at its finest. Lemon Fist has already contributed so much. Where was I'm off track again. That's fine, though, because that's what this is all about. We're going to be doing these ideally once a week. This is the first one. This is just to kind of like introduce people the idea that Connor's talking head will be here with a fancy... There it is. Fancy Rawlock coming soon thing over here, and some music in the background, and we'll just be talking about the stuff that we're doing. For this week, unless like a bunch of questions pop up in the unless a bunch of questions pop up in the chat for me to address, for the most part, I'm just going to kind of go through some of the things that we have that is going in the book definitively. We are still in the process of kind of deciding what is a core piece of the book and what is ultimately going to be a stretch goal for the book, because the way the book is right now, it is, or at least the way the book I want it to be, is going to be very expensive to print. So some of that's going to need to land in a stretch goal category, and some of that's going to be this is a core piece of it. But the stuff that we've definitively said that's core content, I can read through that right now, and none of this is final. If if this launches and suddenly it's, well, in the first Rawlock stream you said it's going to be core. Subject to change. So still a little early. We've got a lot of this kind of built out, but sadly we're not exactly sure 100% what's core content, what isn't. And right now what I'm doing is I'm looking for a page that I have lost that I was going to read from. So again, Connor is not a professional streamer, and he's doing a bad job. So yeah, I know what I could do. We had a prototype printed. It's not here. I hopefully have it for next week to show you. But we did have a prototype printed. The prototype has the table of contents, so I will pull that up, and I will read from that. And you folks can ask me... That's the cover. That's not doing me any good. And you guys can ask me questions about the things that I read off. So let me get this PDF open. Sadly, I am not a professional streamer as I am. That's going to become my... I'm going to make a T-shirt. T-shirt Connor, not a professional streamer. Since I am not, as such, a professional streamer, I did not set something up to be able to show you what's on this sheet. But I will read it out loud for you. And next time when I have the prototype, hopefully... Next time when I have the prototype, I can show you what that table of contents looks like. But coming right down... There's not a lot in the prototype. It's a whole lot of blank pages because layout had just started when we sent that off to be printed. So right out of the gate, when we made the grimoire, obviously we kind of flavored the whole thing around this framing narrative of Gurren Gemhammer. And for those of you who have been following us for a while, like we've been subtly maintaining this lore about the worlds we kind of sometimes write adventures for and our products take place in. We haven't been consistent about that, but Gurren Gemhammer is the founder of Gemhammer and Sons, and in the grimoire, he's got a whole little about him, and camera's over here. I don't know what I'm doing. About him and over here, a letter from him, and then there's information about him and his family and how he connects to the present-day Gemhammers, and that'll hopefully get fleshed out in future content. But for this one, it didn't make sense for Gurren to write a big book about punching stuff. Even though there is a muscle wizard in this, it's still a wizard, just because punch or fist, one of them's a spell. I think it's fist. Just because fist is a spell doesn't mean that they're not wizards. So we didn't think it made sense. Rawlock is a character from a game that we played a long time ago, Joe and I, from Gemhammer. You've seen Joe on these or around or posting stuff. We play with the Dudes, Guys, and Dragons. It's a great group of guys that we play with every Monday night. Obviously, our content is not based on those games and what we play there, but sometimes, stuff inspires and influences other things, and we love the character Rawlock and everything. I don't want to say we love the things that he stands for, because he's evil. He's a chaotic, evil guy. I don't think he maintains that he's chaotic evil, but he almost certainly is based on his actions. But our buddy Rob, who created the character, it's just a crazy, insane character that eventually became a god, and we loved the idea that in a similar way that Gurren wrote this grimoire, and then the editors and his sons are coming in and editing it, like, take everything with a grain of salt. We liked the idea that what are the adherents of Ralok? His Germain, his herald, not his herald, his goofy squire, who is delusions of grandeur, is writing all about how amazing following Ralok is, and all the great things that his followers do. But then the actual god coming in and being like, I don't know what that is, and just having fun with it, kind of taking the piss out of it. Writing this fanatical devotee, and then the god not really knowing what he's on about. So that's kind of the framing structure. We will have information about, like, if you wanted your character to worship the god of Ralok, your chaotic evil paladin, fighter, barbarian, whatever, your punchy, hitty, swords person, martial character. Yeah, let's go with that. If that person wants to devote themselves to the god of violence, as Ralok is the god of violence. I think he was originally a god of war, but I like the idea that he's a god of violence. So I've taken some editorial license with that. But Ralok, god of violence, if you want your character to be worshipping them, then we're going to have that information, what the temples are like, and what sorts of holidays there are. Holidays, god of violence. It's going to be weird. But it's going to be a relatively small section of the book. Moving on from there, combat. Combat obviously is a big thing. D&D generally is a combat-oriented game. Some people may disagree. I personally feel that 5th edition is structured much more around combat than role-playing. In fact, the Roll20 system, even 3rd edition, I think, is heavily... It's like... maybe like 80-20, here's the combat, and here's, the 20 is the role-playing. So obviously, there's a lot of combat in the game, but we have some ideas about changing up combat and making combat a little more interesting, and situational combat rules. So some of the examples, mass combat. We have some ideas that we think are great for mass combat, including battlefields and how you would play with squads, how sieges might work. So playing with squads, that would be you sitting down at the table, and obviously this would need to be a big session or played against multiple sessions, but you have multiple character sheets, and you have to, obviously you have to keep track of it, but some characters are in one squad, some characters are another, and one team is doing one thing, one team's doing another thing, and their success is reliant on them both being successful, which plays into something else I'm not allowed to talk about just yet, but will be really cool, and we'll be here on Twitch, and I can't wait to tell you all about what that is. But moving on, vehicle combat, land, air, and sea. We think that we can add some fun, silly things to all three of those, especially the art of the chase. There's a lot of things in chases that I don't think in core SRD 5th edition is quite right. It's my opinion, do with that what you will. But something that got brought up very recently, we were playing a game, and all the vehicles are moving forward. A couple guys are on horses, and they're going along. What happens if you just stop? Everyone else keeps moving. They've left your occupied space. Or not your occupied. They've left your threatened square. Shouldn't that gain an attack of opportunity? Those are some questions that we would like to address. And even if rules is written, that's not how it should work. I think it should, because there's a lot of very cool cinematic moments where someone like slams on the brakes and throws a grappling hook or clotheslines somebody or lets everyone pass them. And I think the opportunity to do that in a game should be rewarded. I don't think it's something that you can really abuse, and it'll be written in a way so that, you do that, you can't just then start driving again and do it again. Obviously that could get silly just so you could try to abuse opportunity attacks. But we have some ideas for new types of land, air, and sea vehicles, which we posted some very light content in our Lost Lore over the last couple months about some of that. But a lot of it is going to be how these vehicles, how they work, and like you're in a vehicle, like obviously the vehicle has so many hit points, and it's going to have so much soak. Soak is obviously also something we'd like to address with some new armor types that I'll talk about in a minute. But generally, like you've got land vehicles, air vehicles, aquatic vehicles, like new different crunchier rules for some of those vehicles, as opposed to here's a battle map that's a boat, and when you're on your boat, you're on the boat, and when you're not on the boat, you're not on the boat. We'd like something a little crunchier for that, and so we're putting together some things for that. And I already talked about the art of the chase. Dueling, I haven't dug too deep into the dueling part, so I will save that for another day to talk about. But performance combat, Joe has been... Yeah, I may want Joe to talk about this in depth in another one of these that we'll do. But we were playing around with some different stage combat and more like gladiatorial arena combat and rules for combat where your performance is as much a part of the fighting as anything else. And there's a lot of situations for this. A wrestling federation is an example that has been thrown out there in our talks, but also you get put before some king, and your rogue got caught stealing something, and they don't know that you're together. To fight him to the death. Okay, and now you need to performance combat to make this fight look real. And I think there's a lot of cool things, a lot of roleplay opportunities, a lot of cool performance combat opportunities that could come up in a game if there's some really good fleshed out rules for it. And maybe there's a class or two that plays into that pretty heavily. I haven't seen any questions, just a whole lot of pretzel rocks. So if any of you want to stop me at any time with a question about anything I'm saying, feel free. It brings us to character options. Right now we are... Well, first of all, we're going to have a ton of backgrounds. A lot of them are built around the idea that you're an adherent of Rawlock, but also a bunch of them are built for some of the classes and subclasses we plan to introduce in this. There are I think there are 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 8 new classes that we plan to bring in. Brawler, Duelist, Magical Guardian, which I'll explain. Pro Grappler, Road Warrior, Squire, Tactician, and Warlord. Which I just realized is set up wrong here in our table of contents. So that's exciting. I'm glad I'm going through here and finding my own mistakes. Obviously, we're also going to have some subclasses for the traditional classes, the core classes. So Barbarian, Bard, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, and Rogue will also get subclasses. We have plans for 2 subclasses for each class, so that would be 32 total subclasses. 8 of our... Wait, is that 32? Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Nope, that's wrong. 30. Nope. 29. Warlord doesn't have any subclasses. If you've been on the Rawlock landing page on our website, so that's jimhammer.com/Rawlock, then you may have noticed that Warlord doesn't have a subclass, and that's intentional, but I'll get to that. So, yeah, so for each class we plan to have subclasses, but half of them will be stretch goals. So we've kind of gone through and said these ones will be stretch goals and these ones won't. So Brawler is a more traditional unarmed fighter. There's unarmed strikes exist in the game, and monks. Monks are very weird to me. I've played a couple monks. Sorry, I just got a text message and it distracted me. I should learn to shut this off when I'm doing that. Monks have always been a little weird to me because they're fighters with sorcery points, and even though that is like the unarmed strike class in 5th edition, I feel like a back alley brawler isn't going to have the kind of key energy. Like, so anytime I've tried to build that in 5th edition, I always end up with a monk or a fighter that is doing suboptimal attacks. So building a class with subclasses around the idea that, you know, it's all unarmed strikes, but viable beyond first level. Excuse me. Was very interesting to us, but we don't want it to feel like a monk. We've got some ideas for how to do that. Duelist. This is a class not quite in the same place as Rogue. It is more around a class specifically built around one-on-one fights. This is not a class that is good about group combat. This is someone that is good when they're one-on-one with an opponent. And obviously there's some downsides to that, like when they end up stuck in a big fight or fighting a bunch of creatures, or there's a whole group of people around them. But that's not to say that some solo players out there, or people that just want to go off on their own and split the party, you silly people, may not want to try that class, and we're having some fun with it. Magical Guardian. Magical Guardian, so this is a joke, and I love it too much to let go of it. But so it started off as this idea that, in my head, that Germain has completely misunderstood a whole lot of things about Rawlok, and there's going to be a lot of that in the book, where he talks about, well, the holy meal is obviously steak and potatoes, and it's like, no, I don't. It's not a holy meal. That's just what I like. You know, I ordered a pizza yesterday. It's not like every Friday we gotta have pizza. Oh, it's the holy word that every Friday we must have pizza. But so Magical Guardian subclasses, form of the idol, form of the little witch. It's Sailor Moon. We're building like a magical girl Sailor Moon class. But obviously we don't want it to be magical girl. You know, it could be anybody. But the whole thing is kind of built around this idea that it's this you transform into this powerful magical person. It's got some flavor like a vigilante, but it's more magical in nature. And you're probably, well, this is the book all about punching and hitting things. What's that doing in there? The joke, I like it too much. The idea that in a room somewhere, Rawlok has a bunch of like anime figurines and manga in stacks, and Germain has snuck in there and completely misunderstood that these are not like the chronicles of some valiant warrior who worships Rawlok somewhere, but they're just his weeb collection of manga and figurines. So that is entirely just a joke that I really like, and I'm not willing to let go of. Fight me. Pro Grappler is the next one, and it's a wrestler, and it's going to be different than Brawler, and you're probably wondering how. This is a dexterity-based class that is going to use performance combat. It will utilize both strength and charisma and dexterity. They're going to have an unarmored armor class, similar to, or a new way of calculating their armor class, and they're going to be heavily based upon acrobatics and showmanship and performing these elaborate signature moves, and they'll have signature moves that they can select from, and maybe we'll expand upon that in the Kickstarter, like with different stretch goals and feats and things like that. But some of the subclasses for that are Luchador and the Heel. Luchador is obviously going to be your valiant masked wrestler who's all about honor and nobility, and he's fighting for the people and giving money to the orphans. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it's very tropey, and I just love it so much. And the Heel will be this sinister wrestler who's just there to cause problems and be the villain. So there'll be your two options for that. The Heel ultimately is a stretch goal. I didn't say before. I haven't been good about saying what they all are, but the Heel will be a stretch goal, so hopefully we'll get to unlock that. Road Warrior is the next class. Road Warrior, it's exactly what you're thinking. It is a class built all around using vehicles. They are great for using vehicles, and I can think of a lot of cool campaigns where your wheelman is getting you out of tight spots, or a lot of chases on the road, or you've got to steal a carriage or a boat or whatever, and they're built for it. they're designed entirely around using these vehicles and using their actions to do cool maneuvers with these vehicles. Wastelander and Engine Jockey are the, although we may change these names because they're a little too Road Warrior-y, if you follow me. But the Wastelander, the way I've kind of got it built out right now, this is a class, a subclass built around scavenging together a vehicle. Whereas the Engine Jockey is specifically about being able to use any number of vehicles, as opposed to having a specific vehicle that they're scavenging parts for and putting together. The Squire, I love the idea. This is a class I think some people are going to be kind of divided on, but the Squire is going to be a class that is about supporting a single member of the party. So this class is built on, like, there's got to be a fighter or a paladin, somebody in the party that they're like, they are the squire of that character, and their entire character is built around supporting them, helping them with their weapons, giving them buffs, giving debuffs to their opponents. I think there's a lot of cool things that could be done with the duelist and the squire together. I also think when I get down to, I may not talk about the prestige classes this time. We may save that for another one. But there's a lot of cool interaction I think can happen here. Shield Bearer and Standard Bearer are the two subclasses we have for that right now. And Shield Bearer will have some cool things with blocking and defending, and whereas Standard Bearer will have a lot of inspiring and buffing and debuffing that they'll be done. Standard Bearer is the one that will be a stretch goal. Tactician, this one is kind of a flip to the Squire idea. This is a class built around supporting and boosting everyone else. Not just one member of the party, but the entire party. And it's there. I know there's like an Inquisitor Rogue in 5th edition that's kind of got a similar mastermind idea, but with this, it's they're a thinky, methodical, Machiavellian-esque class. Probably not great for combat, but we're still playing around a little bit with how they work in combat as opposed to just them building out around everyone else. Warlord has to be one of my favorites. I have a feeling it's one of Joe's favorites. In previous editions of D&D, the fighter didn't have specific class features. They just picked a feat every level. This is kind of like that. This is a class that will be built around a large number of feats, and I won't talk about this too much later because it just makes sense to talk about it right now. This book is going to have a lot of feats. We have built an extensive group of feats. If you go into Lost Lore right now and look at some of the exotic weapon feats and the shield feats and armor feats and stuff like that, that's a small taste of what we're kind of playing with. We realize that the way classes are built right now in 5th edition, that you can't take a lot of feats because you're giving up your ability score and stuff like that. We're playing with some crazy ideas here. We want to expand feats and give people more options, get people breaking away a little bit from their classes and into the idea of doing some of these feats. And some of that will extend to profession classes, which I'm not going to talk about here today, but we will talk about soon, I promise. With feats and abilities, we're going to have feats. We're going to have rules for special training so that you could go and get new unique abilities with downtime that isn't going to cost you isn't going to cost you your ability score modifier. Now, at the same time, I know a lot of people don't play with downtime. I think everyone should. I think it's a great way to be doing more stuff with the game, and I also think that downtime should be roleplayed more. I know some people do it just outside, week to week. Oh, you have downtime. Tell me how you use it. I feel like a lot more downtime should be roleplayed, and maybe that should be part of the adventure. Every adventure should necessarily be leaping from one combat encounter to the next. Sometimes you're just going to be hanging out with people, carousing and trying to buy magic items. And I like role-playing. I like the role-playing part of D&D. Jara says, "Hi, just joined. Don't know what you're talking about, but I need to say that you look a lot like a French composer. I don't know them. Alexandre Astier? I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly. I apologize if I've... Alexandre? I'm bad with pronouncing things. But I apologize if I butchered that. Thank you, maybe. If I look like someone famous, neat. It's good to... I'm going to look them up. Not right now, because I'm talking. But what we're talking about, I'm talking about our... I'm not sure if you're familiar with Gemhammer & Sons. We are a small tabletop publisher. We make content for 5th edition, and we're talking about our next Kickstarter. Our Kickstarter is going to be Rollick's Guide to Violence, as you can... No, I did it right. I pointed the right way. See, I'm getting so much better at this. It's going to be our next project is Rollick's Guide to Violence, a big book of French is a hostile language. Fair enough. I took it for 4 years, and I still can't speak a word of it. But that's also true of French, Italian, and Latin. So, yay, Romance languages. I am 0 for 4. There's a lot more romances than languages than that, but those are the ones I've tried. Anyway. So yeah, that's what we're talking about, is our next Kickstarter, and I'm kind of going through the table of contents right now. And sadly, I did not set this up to share my screen. I will try to do something like that for next time. Maybe next time I'll even set it up so I can be illustrating on my my iPad while we're doing this, so you can kind of see some of that process as well, see behind the art and the layout that I do. But what we were talking about was just feats and downtime and special training, and how right now I don't think people use downtime a lot in 5th edition, or when they do, it's something that happens in between sessions, and I personally believe that it's something that should be role-played at the table, and it's something that should be done a lot more. It's been a while since I DM'd. Well, I DM'd a one-shot recently, but it was a one-shot. But I think the next time I get behind the screen, I would want to do a lot of downtime sessions. You know, sessions where you're probably not going to get into a whole lot of combat, and people are doing stuff in town, because I think that there needs to be more role-playing generally, and I want to support that with the content that we produce. So I kind of skipped ahead past character options, in the middle of character options, and jumped to feats, and the reason for that was because the Warlord class is completely built around taking feats. Now, the feat trees are very isolated, very insular. You're not going to be able to... well, you can kind of like take the bottom row of a bunch of things, but you're not going to be very strong. The feat trees that we're building, the idea is that, like, if you have Warlord, the idea is you're going to be able to spec into either a lot of low-level stuff, or you're going to be pretty good at, like, very specific things. So, like, if you want a taste of that, you can go on to our website and check out the Lost Lore on Arms and Armor. Is it Arms and Armor? Shields and Armor? I don't remember the name of it. It's been a little while. I'm busy. I'm a busy guy. I do this, and I work, and I got I'm finishing my master's degree, so I'm a little cooked right now. I haven't slept much, so I apologize. But you can kind of see in the Lost Lore from a few months ago that we put out about shields and armor, that, you know, all of the cool, like, oh my god, you get 2 tower shields, and you're gaining benefits from it. Yeah, but look at what you had to spec into to get there. Warlord will be able to do a lot more of that than other classes, because they're going to be able to pick feats a lot more often. But they're going to be on a straight path, and there's not going to be a lot of branching over into another area. So if they want to spec into all the armor and all the shields and all the swords, well, they're going to find that they're very restricted in what they can and can't do there. Just so that, you know, it's still fair for other classes and that want to be able to make use of those feats just generally. But we will have very cool capstone feats if you take the entire tree to kind of reward taking all of the shield feats and all of the sword feats, or whatever feats that we ultimately have. Just a quick run through, because I don't want to spend the whole stream. I'm not doing this all afternoon. Probably only want to be on here for an hour. But for subclasses, we'll have 2 for Barbarian, Bards, Fighters, Monks, Paladin, Ranger, and Rogue, as I said before. And some of the subclasses are Barbarian Path will be Path of the Ralocalypse. This is a Paladin of Ralok. Obviously the Jara, what am I talking about? We're talking about our new Kickstarter, which will be coming in the fall. Rollick's Guide to Violence. It is a book all about combat in 5th edition D&D, because that's what we do. Gemhammer and Sons produces content for 5th edition, if you're not familiar with us. And so I'm kind of going through the table of contents as it stands right now and talking about some of the features of the book. We're going to be doing this every week leading up to the Kickstarter, so we can talk about different features and also get some interaction with you folks, you wonderful people on Twitch and on the internet that want to kind of chime in and say, I love that, but maybe the other one's the stretch goal and this one's in the core book because we love that one so much and we want that so much more. Or maybe we'll talk about some very specific features, and we'll have some questions for you about what you want in the book versus what you don't want in the book. So this is the first live stream where we're talking about the project generally, and giving you an idea of some of the stuff that's going to be in the book so that you can kind of form questions and interact with us. So that's what we're doing, again. Right now I'm talking about some of the subclasses. We talked about the new classes that we are introducing. Don't mean to interrupt, I need some advice. I'm DMing for the first time tonight. Any tips to improve or kind of create scenarios on the run for my players if they get off track? I like to think up an encounter table when I DM. So I put some... we haven't done a lot of books. Well, actually, we have a bunch of new adventures on the way. The last year, obviously for everyone, has been tough. It's been very tough for us. I lost my job back in November. Joe is his store closed down and reopened, and had a whole bunch of things going on with that. I'm trying to finish grad school, so we have a bunch of adventures on the way. I know some people liked our Kingdom of Owlbears, but we haven't done much with that, and that's because we had a bunch of stuff lined up, and then things got in the way, and then COVID happened, and we just haven't got back there. But in this book, and sorry to kind of skirt around there, I have encounter tables all over the place, and they're vague. Like, for example, you find a runestone with an elf carved in it. Any elf who touches the stone receives a vision of mystics brewing potions, and then they learn how to make, they just get the knowledge of how to do create an item that's here in the book. Not to sit here and just plug this, but having a big encounter table. It doesn't need to be something like that where it's oh, he just learned how to create a cool magic item. But I like to have a random encounter table. Just make it up yourself, and it doesn't need to be this deep, complex thing. Just think of something vague, and let your players run with it. If they get off track or they start doing something, just break it up. Suddenly, shambling mound rolls in. Suddenly, you find a stone, and it's emanating, and it's carved in these runes. And when they do an Arcana check, it's emanating some type of magical aura, and then just swing into what you planned on doing anyway. They get too far off track. We'll distract them. Give them the shiny something, and then give them an encounter. Give them something cool to chew on, and then, because I don't know exactly what you're planning to do, so it's hard for me to say, well, then just swing into the next thing. But try and think up, you're going to start off players in a tavern. Maybe they're not in a tavern, but step the one, everyone meets in a tavern or wherever they're going to be. They're going to be someplace. And the goal is to get them to part B without railroading them. Well, a great way to do that is just think about all the places they might be in between those two places. And if they get too far off track, just send them there. Just we're going to wander off in this direction. Okay, we'll give them an encounter there. Doing a wild mound adventure, the Frozen Six trying to find an antidote for a disease. A number group, having played with them before as a player, can be very unfocused and want to stray from the storyline to almost keep the game going longer for comedic moments. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if that's what they like, if they're enjoying having those fun comedic moments, this camaraderie, just keeping the adventure going. I mean, obviously, you can't play a 20-hour session just to keep the thing alive. Ain't nobody got time for that. I don't. But if it's I haven't done Wild Mount before, but if the whole thing is finding an encounter for a disease, finding an antidote for a disease, ultimately, if you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, where else might they find an antidote? would be my question. Like, you want to keep the story going, okay, and it's your story, but you're all telling a story together. It's about each of you adding something. So try to think up some alternatives. You know, if you want them to go into a castle or a tower to get this antidote and they won't get it, and they decide to go wander in the woods and try and find herbs that maybe they'll jerry-rig a potion together or something, then, well, maybe they encounter a fae, or it's a mystical person who's willing to cure the poison for a price, or something. You know, like, try and think of other ways they might find an antidote for this potion, and just kind of test them out and see where they go. Say, this is where they are, these are the places they might go, and in each of these, what might they end up doing to get that potion. And if the whole point was to get them back at that castle to tell the story, as an example, because I don't know exactly what you're doing again, sorry, send them back there. Say, go to the castle and steal me the magic glowing MacGuffin stone. Get me the MacGuffin. Bring me the MacGuffin. Like, that's the whole thing, you know? Ultimately, like, DMing is hard. I'm trying to help you the best I can without knowing the intricacies of your game. But they need to, as much as you need to understand that it's their game too, and they want to go have fun and do stuff, they also need to understand that at the end of the day, you're trying to get them somewhere and do something. So just try and figure out all the, like, some subtle other options they might have for finding the same antidote. And ultimately, like, if you can't get anywhere, let them go. Either railroad them and send them back, which is terrible advice, or let them go. They don't want to find the antidote to the poison, then they don't find the antidote to the poison. You know, they'll figure it out. You know, maybe there are consequences. You know, they don't find the antidote to the poison. Now they've got to deal with the consequences for having failed to do that. I don't know what those consequences are. If it's a character death, that sucks. But, you know, it happens. Anyway, I don't want to get too off track. I haven't done a lot of Wild Mount, so I can't speak too much about that campaign setting and some options you may or may not have in that regard. But generally, I would try and think up some encounter tables and then try to give them different options, especially if they don't seem too keen on what's being presented to them. Because you don't want to just take complete control away from them, because it's their game too, but at the same time, they need to understand they got to get somewhere and do something. So that would be my advice. I don't remember where we left off. I think we were talking about classes. Oh, that's where we were. Barbarian. Jeez, I said barbarian paths. Oh, someone was swearing in the chat. Were you swearing in the chat? I don't see that. Sorry, the modbot, Nightbot, was just like, you're swearing! Bad! Here's a warning. You don't see anything that's bad. Weird. I'm going to have to double check my restricted language filter on Nightbot, because that's weird. Appreciate the advice. You know you're being vague. I get it. We've all been there. I hope I was helpful. Good luck when you play. You know, let us know if you have any other questions or if there's anything we can do to help. We live for D&D, so, you know, we've always got ideas. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Subclasses, barbarian paths. I said this is like a paladin of Warlock. It kind of is. This is a barbarian completely built around worshipping Warlock. It's going to be flavored more like a barbarian paladin, because that's kind of what it is. It's Path of the Warlockalypse. And for those, I haven't said anything about this, but the plains of Warlockalypse is where Warlock lives, and it's just this torrid hellscape of brutal, very, I don't know if you've been able to tell, like very 80s heavy metal goofiness. This is gonna be very tropey, this book. Not that the other one wasn't. My first session was mainly players role-playing together and me role-playing an old Dragonborn innkeeper in a silly way. I mean, that's great. I mean, some of the best sessions I've had have been just this completely off-the-cuff doing silly voices, and you gotta go get the princess, kids. This is going to be great, and just have fun. I think that's what we're all trying to do here with D&D, is just play and have fun. I keep getting off track, but this is great because I like talking to you folks. I'm glad you're interacting. If anyone has any questions about the thing I'm actually talking about, please feel free. But any question you have at all, I'm apparently more than willing to jump off track for. Bardic collars. Bardic colleges. I'm writing Bardic collars down now because I'm ridiculous and I feel like that's going to be a thing later. Bardic colleges. The Angst Singer and the War Herald are the two subclasses we've kind of set up for that. The Angst Singer is exactly what it sounds like. This is going to be a Screamo debuff bard. It is also going to be somewhat based on a character that one of the dudes, Guys and Dragons, have played in the past. The War Herald will be about a martial buff. This is not going to be your singing with nice songs, and we have some interesting ideas about how that's going to work. Fighter archetypes, Shield Champion, and Lancer. Lancer, I'm really excited for this because so Lancer is going to be a stretch goal, and there's a reason for that, and it's because it is probably less desirable than a normal fighter. But the idea is that this is like the second fighter in a group, and they're going to get buffs based on the successes and failures of the other fighter, because they're trying to compete with them, and it's a traditional Lancer. Shield Champion. This is going to be a fighter all about shields, and I know that we've got a bunch of feats built around that, but we love Shovel Knight, and Shield Knight is so amazing that we really wanted to play around with that. I'm sorry my connection keeps breaking and I still don't understand what you're talking about. I know it's an official book for 5e, but I'm not sure of the theme. Well, it's not an official book. We make content on the open game license. So our last book was all about spells and magic, and that's the Gemhammer Grimoire, available now at shop.gemhammer.com, if I can plug myself. This whole thing's a plug. What am I talking about? So the theme of this is like heavy metal martial combat, and I say heavy metal, it's not really heavy metal. Like thematically in the book, it's going to be presented that way, Jara. But it's about combat in general, in the same way that this is themed around the idea that it's somebody's spell book specifically. The Rollick's Guide to Violence is a book built around the idea that this is this specific god, and these are the people that worship him. It's all about combat. It's new styles of combat, new subclasses. A silly amount of feats are being put into this. We've got some plans for prestige classes, which, excuse me, I know there's not a lot of that in 5th edition, but we love prestige classes. And we put prestige classes in this book as well. So we've got ideas for prestige classes, new types of combat, new rules for combat. Performance combat is going to be in the book. I'm very excited about that. We've also got some ideas. Again, I'm not going to talk about that today. That's going to be a future one. Profession classes, which will be separate from normal classes, and that's as much as I will say about that. We have some big ideas on that, but special training, new ways of getting feats, new ways of using downtime and role-playing that kind of special training, rules for playing in squads. So like if you had multiple parties, like your D&D group has multiple parties that they could be playing with in the same big battle, and kind of swapping between them, and the success of one and the success of the other, like kind of impact one another, and failures might impact the other one. Which I'm going to get off subclasses for a bit. Actually, one more subclass I want to talk about is Way of the Twin Tigers. Very excited about this. This is a monk class. And then I'll talk about something else, because I know I've been talking about subclasses almost the whole time. But I'm really excited for this. Way of the Twin Tigers. This is going to be a monk subclass that it's 2 people need to take the class together. So 2 players both of their characters need to take this class together. And they level up in the class together, and their abilities affect one another. And they're tandem fighters. They are fighters that all their abilities, all their cool stuff, is built entirely around their tandem interactions, their combo fighting. We are very excited about this. This is so cool. I can't wait to do a playtest on this, or a more fleshed out playtest than just what we've done in-house. It's so cool, and I'm really excited for it. And there's also some cool roleplays. I'm a big roleplay guy, and what if one of them dies? I say with glee. I know that's awful, but now what? Like, there's so many cool storytelling possibilities there. I'm very excited about that. Well, you can go on gemhammer.com/rawlock and to see kind of like a list of some of the subclasses that are on there on one of the test pages we posted. But I'm gonna get off class options for a minute. Some of our gear and equipment. So we're gonna have new weapon and armor materials and rules for crafting. I think that there's some in earlier editions of D&D, I think it did this a lot better, where there were different materials, and there's some of this in 5th edition where you have adamantine and mithril and even silver weapons. But we have an expansive list, 30 plus new materials, and they have unique abilities. So one of them, is that spreadsheet open? So I wasn't going to get too deep into this, but you know, I'm going to save this for another live stream because it's already close to an hour. But generally, that's what it's going to be, is a huge list of new materials and what you can do with them, and if you make armor out of this material, what kind of effects that might have, what the materials effects on the armor would be, and also the costs, because it's going to be more expensive to make mundane weapons out of these unique materials that have special abilities and special properties, I should say. We're going to have new weapons and armor. Some of that you'll find on Lost Lore, very little. We have a huge list, climbing axes, for those of you who want to go ice climbing, and how they can be used as a weapon versus how they can also be used as a tool. So, like, that's giving you an idea about some of these weapons that are also tools. And you'll need special proficiencies in those. Exotic weapons. Advanced and primal weapons are ideas that we have for stretch goals, and those are, advanced weapons will be more things like more advanced firearms and things like that, and primal weapons will be, obsidian blades and I can't remember them off the top of my head. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm a little cooked. It's been a long week for me. But we'll talk about more of those in the future. We're gonna have huge stat blocks for all the new vehicles we plan on introducing. So all the vehicles that I talked about with the vehicle combat. Connor is a professional streamer, once again, Wandering Shrink. I'm doing much better this time, I'm happy to say. Thanks for popping in. It's been a long time. I'm happy to see you in the chat. So we're gonna have a ton of stat blocks for those new vehicles, because I think vehicles should have stat blocks. Just the idea that wood has an inherent armor class and some number of hit points. That doesn't sit quite right with me. So these vehicles will have parts, and they will have stat blocks, and so all of the land, air, and water vehicles will need their own stat blocks to kind of be able to work the way we're building them out. We have a ton of magic items on the way. Happy to hear and good to drop in. It's great to hear from you. I don't know how long you've been in here. I don't know if you have any questions about our new project. Darn! I had it. I kept doing this. See, the first time I did this, I thought I did it wrong. And I was actually, I wasn't pointing at the logo that's over there. I was pointing at my other screen that has all the information on it. And then I realized, this is the right one. But now this time I'm trying to point at the logo that's on this screen. And I've ruined it. So close. Anyway, good to hear from you, Wandering Shrink. Let me know if you have any questions. Actually, anyone, let me know if you have any questions about the product. And we're going to have tons of trinkets and baubles, magic items. We have cool ideas for scaling weapons that level with you. Great ideas for new types of magic items that are affected by specific things in the world. So a lot of those are going to be pulled into stretch goals, but at least 100 magic items are going to be core in this book. Been lurking around muted, so just mean to hear about it now. So, Wandering Shrink, I'm sure you're familiar with the Gemhammer Grimoire, which is our big book of magic stuff. This is going to be our big book of fighty, punchy stuff. So this is the sword to the Grimoire's sorcery. So, and I've just kind of been going through what the present table of contents looks like, because this is we're going to launch this in the fall, and nothing's like set in stone just yet. But I just want to kind of go through that and give people an idea of what's going to be in this book, and we're going to do this every week. Maybe, I don't know that 2 to 3 is a perfect time for this. Maybe I'll do it a little later in the day. Thursdays are kind of tough for me because I have class at night on Thursdays, but or maybe we'll do it on a Wednesday. I don't know. This is a good time for everybody. Guide to Violence is my spirit animal. Which makes no sense, but it's perfect. I know you said it's my aesthetic, but it's my spirit animal. Anyway, so yeah. So we've been talking about all the classes that were new classes that we're introducing, subclasses we're bringing in. We haven't talked about prestige classes. We're saving that for another day. Talked about gear and equipment. Talked about feats and abilities. Big feat trees. Tons of magic items on the way. Item materials. New kinds of combat. And what was the other thing? Something else in here. Oh, profession classes. And profession classes, which will be separate from regular classes and won't interfere with them. And I'm not going to say any more than that because we want to talk about those entirely separately, because this will be a whole new thing that I'm very excited for. So I've talked more about it than I probably should. Anyway, it's 3 o'clock now, so I don't want to chew up everyone's day, and I know I have other things I got to get to, but I'm willing to hang out for another however long people still have questions to answer any questions about the stuff that we've talked about now, or what our plans are for the next project, or any of our previous projects, or just general questions people may or may not have for me. I am more than willing to answer the questions while I'm still here. So there's a bit of a delay. I know that, so I will hang out while you people get a chance to maybe ask me some of the questions. If there are questions, cool. If not, then I'll get going a bit. But I will wait. What else can I talk about while I wait for potential questions? Well, this is the thing. So I mentioned a little bit earlier the potential of hooking up my tablet and doing illustrations for the book while we talk about it. I don't know if that's something people are really interested in. This video, by the way, is going to end up on our YouTube and also on our website. If you are not signed up to get notifications from our newsletter, please do that. You will see that information scrolling across the bottom of the screen. It's gemhammer.com /newsletter. Please sign up because this video will end up posted to our newsletter, and it will go as an update, and it'll get sent out to everyone. And so if you ever miss one of these, you can at least see it. But maybe not a great question asked, but what happened to the Decadynamic Dungeons? I know it didn't make it on Kickstarter, but you put a lot of work into it. I know. I actually addressed that at the beginning of the stream, but I'm more than willing to talk about it now. I've talked about it before. So, the Decadynamic Dungeons, it didn't make it on Kickstarter. And we think it had too high of a price tag on it. I'm not quite. Maybe it was just a bad time for it, bad timing. However, it didn't get to the end goal. Is not relevant. The point is, it didn't get there. When we took another look at it, we went back to a couple of the publishers that we're a publisher. A couple of the printers that we work with, and we tried to nail down a price that could make this more viable, make this better. We came up with one option, and that option ultimately was to go through DriveThruRPG, which we were more than willing to do, and we were actually preparing to do. Within a few days of making the decision and announcing that we would be doing Rehash of the Decadynamic Dungeons, a very small Kickstarter for a smaller amount of money, DriveThruRPG announced that they were no longer doing bulk for cards. And the thing is that tuck boxes are a thing that we always do. We have a quality standard that I'm not willing to let go of. So a lot of people that were backers of the Kickstarter asked us to just put the cards, because they know that it was almost done. The deck was almost done because we had showed the people that it was almost done. Like, I had the card. They're not there anymore. They sat there for over a year. There's a shelf here that I want to pull from, but they're not there anymore. The cards were done. There was like 5 or 6 cards that we needed to play around with. Because there were these intricate like quests that were like hidden in the cards in a way. That like, oh, when you fought this thing, they had items on them, and when you killed this thing, you got a water orb, and there was another card somewhere in the deck that when you got to the thing, you could interact with it in a special way if you had the water orb, and things like that. So people knew this was pretty much done, and they were asking us to just put it on DriveThruRPG. If we just put it on DriveThruRPG, there's two problems that I have. One, it won't be in a tuck box, because tuck boxes were a thing that shrink wrapping and tuck boxes were a thing you could do when you bulk ordered cards. If I do individual, let's see, do I have one out? I do. So we have a couple different versions of our business card. This is the one we do for conventions. So our business card for conventions has information about us in the back, but then on the front is a magic item. But these we ordered from DriveThruRPG. And this is how the Decademic Dungeons would have arrived, just banded with a cover card. And that wasn't good enough for us, because since we couldn't do shrink wrapping anymore, and because we couldn't do tuck boxes, ultimately we had to pass on that. And the other printers we've talked to, the price is the same or higher, and a lot of it has to do with the shipping. Somehow, shipping a deck of 100, shipping many decks of playing cards is more expensive than shipping books. So more than 80% of the Decademic Dungeons costs was shipping. And ultimately what it came down to is that no one could get that number down. So we had to kind of shelve it for the time being, especially since shipping and material handling prices are so crazy right now. Like, we just didn't have a way to make it work. We could order some, but we wouldn't be able to order enough, like with what we have like just on hand, in terms of like, we're not a big company. We don't have a lot of like free capital to work with. So even if we just like ordered a bunch of them the way we want them to be, like, we probably wouldn't make any money off of them. And so ultimately, like, it's such a cool project, and I'm really disappointed that we can't be doing it right now. It's just going to have to wait for when shipping prices can come down, and when we can maybe work with a printer that's able to do what we want to do the way we want to do it. Yeah, it is a bummer, but it just is what it is. And it's not going anywhere. PDFs don't go bad, so all of that still exists. So hopefully, as things start to get a little better with the economy, and as shipping prices maybe come down in the future, maybe if DriveThruRPG starts supporting tuck boxes and shrink wrapping again, maybe if all of those things happen, then you'll see the Decademic Dungeons return. But for right now, books are what we're planning for the future. We've got a bunch of modules planned and hardcover books, because somehow those are cheaper and possible to produce. Yeah, rewatch it. This is going to land on our YouTube, and it's also going to land on our website, so you can kind of go through and rewatch it. If anyone else has any questions, I see there's some more people still in the chat. 3 of you have stuck it out. Thank you very much. But if anyone has any questions about Rawlock's Guide or anything else, say now, or forever hold your peace, or save them for next week, because I'll be doing this again next week, where we'll talk about... You let me know. Let me know. Shoot us a message on Twitter or on our website, or this video when it lands on YouTube and on our website. What you want us to talk about next week? We talked a lot about some stuff. Very vaguely, I am aware, about some stuff in the table of contents. You guys let us know what you want us to talk about next week, and if you don't, I'll figure it out. I'll pick something. I'll pick something for next week. But if I don't see anything show up in the comments in like the next 10 seconds, then I'm going to head out. Just, I'm going to give it as long as it takes for me to take a drink. I drank more than I wanted to, and it hurt a little. You two have a good night. I'll see everyone next week when we do this again. If you have any questions, good day. Yes, it's only like 3 o'clock here. I don't know where you are right now, so maybe it's nighttime for you. But yeah, so we're gonna do this again next week. So if you have any questions, save them for then. Rewatch the video if you like. Try and form out some ideas and questions about what we talked about that piqued your interest. So we'll be doing this again soon. We'll see you all then. All right, bye. Connor has once again failed to be a professional streamer and screwed up that transition. So we're gonna try that again. Bye, everyone.